host on Short and Sweet, a Donut Princess podcast. Thank you so much for listening. And I am so excited to share the stories of these wonderful people who come on my podcast. And my hopes is that you'll walk away with learning something about yourself or having the courage to continue or start a journey of your own. It can be an entirely difficult world out there when you think about starting anew or pivoting. But for many successful people, a lot of people do end up pivoting, especially with the ever-changing world. And today I have Tyler Skinner. She is a woman with charisma, grit, and she's found her true calling by trying a bunch of different things. On this podcast, we're going to talk about imposter syndrome and fear, learning to adapt, and she's going to give you some amazing golden nuggets at the end on something that I hope that will help you on your journey. So Tyler, thank you so much for being here today. And I want to really kick it off with, tell us a bit about the way beginning and how, and bring us to the present today. And some of the things that that occurred to you on your journey that the audience would benefit from hearing about your personal story.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. This is exciting because I'm often in your seat and I'm interviewing other women. And so it's really exciting to be on this end, the receiving end, and be able to share my story and use my voice. So thank you so much for that opportunity, because we don't often get to hear ourselves speak and hear our own story out loud. And so this is really, I think podcasting is such a beautiful way to express that and be able to share with a wide audience, just have people be able to connect with us and resonate with who we are and what we're about and the way we move and operate in the world. So the story for me, where does it begin? It actually would begin, I would say, we're all going to go into, I won't even go into childhood, because that's, I think I've just always been this really, like you said, charismatic, and the grit. Thank you for those words. I often don't hear that out loud either, about how other people view me, but it's true. I am a very enthusiastic, super dynamic, charismatic person. And I've been that way all my life. And I will talk about this probably today on the podcast. We'll touch on this, I hope. And I'm totally willing to go there and dive deeper, but because I believe it gives permission for others to do the same. So if I can share those bits, I'm okay with that, if that's okay with you.
Yes, absolutely.
And talking about how I dimmed that, how my light was shining so bright. And then I let myself go to this place. And I say let myself because I used to blame others for that experience. Like it was happening to me, the victim mentality, like it's happening to me. They're doing this to me. It's all blame and regret and shame. And I went, no, it's really, I let myself kind of go there. And that's taken a while. It's a journey. It's taken a long time to get to this point, but that's what started in childhood. Is this enthusiastic, really bubbly, effervescent, bright, very like shining star, I would say, because I think we're all stars in our own way, and we're all super creative individuals. Absolutely. And we have a gift to offer the world. And it's like finding that is part of the journey. Like finding that gift is where it's at. And that could take a year. It could take 10 years. It could take however long. So I think for me, we'll talk about women making waves, just that whole process has been really in my 20s. Like that's kind of where I want to like kind of start it.
Yeah.
But that's sort of how it feels to me. Is like I was in my 20s, and it's like that leaving for the first time. For me, I was fortunate enough to be able to leave home and go to college, which I know that's not the experience for everyone.
Right.
And I feel fortunate for that I had the ability to do that and go off and leave my home and have this whole like, I'm independent and I'm learning about myself. And that's what I did. I really used that time very wisely. And I was very much into like discovering myself. Like, who am I? Who's that girl inside? What does she want to be when she grows up? What does she want to do? How does she want to change the world? And if your listeners can't tell by now my enthusiasm, they'll be like, okay, she's definitely that person.
But it's sorry to interrupt, but like this is what a lot of people go through, like this search for identity. And a lot of people think that, right when I get to college, I'm going to figure it out. And just to share a little bit about myself is I went to school to be a news reporter, and senior year, last quarter, I decided that was not what I wanted to do. So if you guys are anywhere in this position where you're in your 20s, you're trying to figure out where you are and you don't exactly find it during college, that's okay. And I'll let you continue with that.
Well, no, there's a book out there. I'm glad you're bringing this up because that's how you and I even connected.
Yes.
Remember? Like I saw your post and I went, "Oh my gosh, she's a girl after my own heart. She's ready to be like, this is what women making waves is. It's like women who are going like, I want to shift, I want to change. Something's yearning inside me. Where do I find that part of myself and how can I reconnect to it? And how can I reignite that flame and keep it burning? And who needs to help me get there? And what kind of community can support that? That bigger vision that we have for ourselves. And there's a book that I'm going to share right now because I think it's so important. It's by Megan J, and it's called the Defining Decade. That's what it's called. And it's really all about your 20s.
Yeah.
And I haven't read it all the way through yet. I'm working on it still. But what I've read so far, and I keep just singing the praises of Megan J because it is phenomenal to say your 20s aren't like the time to go. I mean, yeah, we want to party and discover and travel. And I get it. All those things. I did it too. It's really just that it really defines who you are, setting yourself up, your identity for the next part of the chapters of your years, your next decades. And it's kind of a foundational time. And I thought back to that and I went, when I was 20, that's how I felt. When I was 18, 20, going to college, that's exactly how I felt. This is a really important time for me to define who I am and really learn about myself and explore. And that's just what I did. I did a lot of women's work. I did a lot of women's advocacy work. I got really involved in my university and joined clubs and did conferences and just like really just head first dove in because I'm excited about being on my own. But also I'm like, I need to find my community. If I don't have people around me, because I'm a huge extrovert and I also love collaboration and I love working with people. So I'm like, who's out there that wants to do this with me? And that's was my journey in college. But I went abroad. That was also part of my story, is going abroad to learn about myself and discover a lot about me in this big world. Because then I went, oh, I'm coming from this little place of this town or this city or this state, and I'm going to the world, out in the world, and going, I'm in this huge city or this huge place with a different culture, a different language, and I've got to adapt to that. And what does that mean for me? And that was a big shift of my 20s. I think I was 22 when I did that. And yeah, 2 years abroad will change your life.
I highly recommend anyone in the position to go abroad. Like I also went abroad too. And I remember I was like, I'm going to save up money and I'm not going to ask my parents and I'm going to go and do this thing. And that's where I learned a lot about myself because you don't have your parents around. You maybe have a few friends. And like you said, you're just a little tiny little being in this huge world. Like it opens up your horizons and it even shows you like what's possible out there. Like anything is possible out there.
That is the best thing you just said. That's so perfect because it's true. It's like I went through so many challenges with language, with diverse, like just trying to figure out where I fit. And then being a student and then going to actually live there another year and work in that environment because my parents and family, they were like, we're not funding this, like this thing that you're doing, like this is not how it works. And I went, well, then I got to figure out a way. I got to find a way. If I really want this bad enough, I got to figure it out.
Yeah.
And so I went into resource mode. Like I started just like researching, figuring out what I needed to do and made it happen. And it was, I'll tell you that part of the story, and this is where I'll right after this is the chapter that goes deep and it gets a little bit more dark, is because that experience was such a high for me, such a high point.
Yeah.
And it was so important and pivotal in my story of just like how I'm developing myself and then this emergence of who I really am and self-discovery. And then in that time I was there, I got into a relationship with someone that I met and I glommed onto and I grabbed and I was like, okay, we're going to get married. I mean, I did the whole thing, like 90 Day Fiance, all of that. Like you've watched it on TLC. It's totally, that's pretty accurate. A lot of it, to be honest. And I met this person and I fell in love and I thought, okay, this is what I'm going to do. And I want to marry this person. I want to bring him back. And then I had no real idea about what that was going to look like. And I was really okay with that. I'm the kind of person that I'm okay with uncertainty.
Yeah.
I'm comfortable with it. Not a lot of people are. And so I'm like, cool, we're just going to figure it out. And little did I know, lo and behold, that wasn't really what was going to happen. And when I got back, I mean, there was addiction, there's abuse, there was all kinds of things around that. And I And I had to then, my light was super dimmed. I mean, I went through all the things. I gained a bunch of weight. I self-loathed. I was just sitting there like, you would never see this person that you're speaking to right now. You would have been like, who are you? Like, this is a completely the opposite end of the spectrum of who you're seeing and hearing right now today. And that's why I say I let myself, because once I've been on this journey, this past chapter of like the second stage,
Mm-hmm.
I realized like I let myself just fall into that. I let myself go there and say, all right, this person's going to define me. This person's going to define who I am, what I say, how I dress, how I act, everything. And I'm going to let that happen. I'm allowing it. I'm giving permission for that to happen.
And to like, I'm so sorry that that was the end product of this beautiful vision that you thought you had, right? With falling in love abroad and bringing them here and experiencing that. But it's crazy that I feel like women are programmed in a way that this is it, we're going to get married to this person and it's all rainbows and butterflies from here. And also this whole thing about latching on, you're not the only one that does it. Like for many relationships in my life, that was what you did because it just felt comfortable and you thought like that's kind of what you're programmed to do. Okay, I want to do whatever they're doing. But again, like you said, you let that dim your light and it takes away so much that you have to offer to the world. And I'm so happy that I'm talking to you right now and that you managed to find your light again.
I did. And that is bringing me to where I'm at now, which is part of that. So I'm jumping a lot ahead. I'm just giving you guys like the 30,000 foot of each section and segment. And anything you want to ask and we want to go deeper, I'm happy to, because that to me was a huge thing of I ended up having a child with that person. My oldest daughter's with that person. He's no longer in her life right now currently, but having that go through me watching her, it took me to see her like a little baby sitting on the floor crying and me just being a mess, and this person leaving and turning off their phone. I mean, all the manipulation, all the things around it, and the narcissism, and just, I mean, I can touch on all the things. It literally was that. And now that I've dug into it more and I've been working on the healing process of all that, I recognize those things. And I didn't at the time. I just thought, oh, that's normal. That's just what I'm experiencing right now. And this is all me. It's my fault. And what did I do to deserve this? And how come I used to be this kind of person? What happened to me? I started questioning, but it was because I looked at her and I said, I have to take care of this child. And I'm responsible for this being that I helped create, And I thought, I'm not going to allow her to watch me feel this way. And then I couldn't even connect to her. I mean, that's how bad it was. I couldn't have a mother daughter, like typical bonding experience, because I was so wrapped up in this relationship stuff that I couldn't, and my own self was just gone. There was like a shell. So I couldn't even, there was nothing to fill up to be able to give anything.
Yeah.
And so having her sit there and staring at her little face, I was like, you know what? I've got to just, I have to help you help me. Like, we're gonna help each other.
Yeah.
Like, I basically had this conversation. She couldn't even talk. Like, we're gonna help each other, girl. We're gonna get each other out of this. And it was her. She was my impetus. She was my catalyst. She was everything to say that's a generation. Like, that's her seeing this. And then what if she just gets in a relationship like this? And then what if she ends up like she sees her mom like this? I'm like, this isn't good for me.
And yeah, mothers are one of the strongest beings on this earth as well, to add to that. And just seeing like how staring into her eyes, you just saw this like lack of connection and like literally the want for connection, because you're bringing this being into the world. You want to be responsible that you can protect her from ever going through something like that you've gone through as well. And I think that's a big part of mom's love. Like moms can be really nagging a lot of times, but I always
True.
tell
Very true.
people, yeah, I always tell people like, look, I know your parents can get on your nerves, but at the end of the day, like they are here to make sure, first of all, that you don't die. Second of all, that you're thriving in this world. And they'll obviously look into their life and be like, okay, I went through this. I didn't really like this. I want you to go on this certain other path. And I'm so glad like she was that for you to like be the catalyst to move forward.
She was. And from that moment on, I was like, And then I knew, and that was the other thing, is I just had this conversation with someone earlier today and saying the courage it takes to then know you're going to be a single mom, like
Mhm.
to know what you're getting into. Then it was like not as uncertain. There was still uncertainty, but I was like, okay, I know now what's going to happen. It's like, this is going to be hard. This
Yeah.
is going to be, whoa, what are we doing here? And I knew that would have to like work extra hard. I knew that I'd have to put food on the table and do these things. Like I knew that. And I think it's something I want to point out is like some single moms. I give a super shout out to
Mhm.
single moms everywhere, because let me tell you, there were sometimes the highest poverty rate is with single mothers, because single moms are working to basically then put their kid in daycare so they can go to work. And
Yeah.
they're working and like doing all that to pay bills to then, and if they have help or not, sometimes they do, sometimes they don't.
Yeah.
It's different scenarios for everyone, but it can be very challenging and rough. There's a lot of shame around it, a lot of things you go through. I had, I was on food stamps, all these things, and I think that is something I just share super openly, because people look at me and they're like, what? And I'm like, it was there because that's what it's meant to be there for. Like it was helpful to me to get back on my feet,
Yeah.
have that little bit of extra help so that I could then go and do what I needed to get done and pick myself back up. And I did. And I found a lot of support in basically her, but also in like certain friends. I mean, I started to reach out, and once I started to share my truth and
Mhm.
not feel ashamed of it, there's my kitty, started to share my truth and not be ashamed of it. I then started seeing that people were like, oh my gosh, let me help you. And I had to learn how to receive again.
Oh
I
yeah.
had to
And
learn how to receive help.
help is something also as women that we just totally deflect all the time. We're like, oh, you need help? No, I'm good, And it is a big lesson of learning, it does take a village. And the first step is accepting that help. And I'm glad you came to that realization because I mean, even my mom today, like she does not take help. She will not ever want help, but you can tell she needs it, or you just want to help them because you love them. And I'm glad that you're able to just be open about it and authentic. Like it's so hard for women, especially with this whole idea, like we have to be perfect, we have to look like we're doing fine. But the fact that you're just so vulnerable and sharing that part of your journey, like that opened up doors for people to help you. You're attracting that energy where there's so many people around that want to help, but they don't know what you're going through. So encouraging people to just be vulnerable and to share their authentic selves so that if the universe says, hey, you need help, the help is on the way.
Yeah, if it's not, that's my thing. If it's not serving you, then you don't have to be part of it. I mean, I know that that's like kind of a hard thing for some people to grasp and to say, but for me, that's, I mean, if we're just sharing my story, like that's part of the journey. It was just
Yeah.
like, this is not serving me. I don't want to feel this way. I mean, I had all the things. I never did my hair, my nails. Like I didn't have self-care. I didn't practice that. I didn't even know what that was like because I was so focused. Then took my focus from this codependent relationship to the kid, and I was like, okay, now I'm going to put all my love and energy into this child. And I
Mhm.
went, what am I doing again? I'm going back into, again, it's me losing my identity into now I'm a single mom and I'm a mother, and this is all my role is, and this is what I'm doing. And I don't have any other part of myself or any other desires or wishes or hopes or dreams for myself. It's
Yeah.
just this. And then I started to think, but once I got back, that's why I'm saying these little things, these steps along the way, and there's a billion steps in between for everyone who's listening. It's
Yeah.
not like, oh, it just happened. Sometimes I listen to these podcasts and I go, whoa, how'd they do that? How'd they do that? It's such a small baby step thing.
Yeah.
It's like wash your hair. I mean, literally, it's sometimes that it's brush your teeth today. Like just get up and brush your teeth. Get up and shave your legs so you feel like good in your skin. Like do something for yourself. And then it becomes another thing and another thing. And it just builds on itself. And for some people, when you're in that dark, dark place where you might be going through hard things, it takes that. It takes small baby steps.
Yep.
It's not just an overnight flash, like I just did this and all of a sudden I'm built a business and this happened. It's like, no, it's such a micro, sometimes it's micro steps. And so for her, like for that part of the journey with her, I just dove right into her and became like another identity loss of like, I'm just a mom and this is all I do. And
Yeah.
for me, I knew there was more because I'm going back to that 20-year-old person. Once I started getting more and more confident and I
Mhm.
started to see myself more and I started to be like, okay, I'm coming back. The light is sparking and it's dimming. Then the questions started coming in. All the things started coming in my head like, okay, Tyler, what do you want to do?
Mhm.
Like now that you feel you've got your job and you're taking care of business and your kid's fed and she's clothed and things are good and you've got the roof over your head, like the basic needs, right? Maslow's hierarchy of needs, they're met. Now what do you want to do? And so I started to look at that. I started exploring my entrepreneurial side. Like I'm like, I've always had that desire to like do my own thing. Part of that could be as a kid me not like being told what to do. I don't know. That's probably what it is. But then that's so what it's ironic about it is what I was sharing in my story is that I then allowed everyone else and things and society and people to dictate who I was and what I said and did and everything else. When I was like this total rebellious kid,
Ah,
was like, I'm bright. Everyone see me do my own thing, doing me. And I couldn't imagine that, like how that had shifted, but it's very, very easy. And it takes some time and people don't recognize it sometimes. And so then coming out of that, I'm like, okay, what do I want to do? I want to start a business. And I gathered a partner. I got a partner. I worked with another woman who went through something similar to me.
yeah.
We had that bond, we had that experience, and she was a single mom and all these things. And we started talking about that and like, what does this look like? And dreaming and hanging out and having coffee together. And our kids were playing. And that it takes one person, everybody, to believe in you.
Yeah.
Then you start to be like, okay, one person, and I'm
Yeah.
going to do this, and it's accountability and it's support. And anyway, but yeah, that's really, and so I don't know, I want to keep going and going, but I want to make sure that you probably have other questions. I don't know.
Yeah. So tell me about Society Gals and also how the pandemic affected you as well. I do want to bring up so when we chatted before, this whole thing about being busy without being productive.
Yes.
And I think that is something that we can all relate to as we like to fill our calendar up with meetings and things that don't really benefit us. So tell me about that part of your journey.
Okay. Yeah, I think one of the main things for that is I want to, I guess, put out there is that the hustle doesn't have to be a struggle. And I think we have a hustle culture that we are starting to see after the pandemic that isn't serving us or hasn't been serving us. And a lot of people are reevaluating, myself included, where we're turning the mirror back on ourselves and going like, whoa, reflection, what's happening?
Yeah.
What was I doing that maybe, do I really need to go to all these activities? Do I really need to be at all these events? Do I need to go on all these Zooms? Do I need to dress up for the Zoom?
Mhm.
Can I get away with my yoga pants and no makeup? Cool. I mean, I think it was
Yes.
just, we got to explore ourselves and see ourselves in just a new light. And myself included, I got to say, oh my gosh, this is my time. I felt like I came out of a shell. Like I went, oh, this is my time to get my creative juices flowing, to shine again, to really let that light come out and share with the world. Like, okay, this is me. Like, that movie, Greatest Showman, when they
Mhm.
do that, this is me. And it's like all that. I watch those things and I get so inspired and I'm like, yeah,
Yeah.
girl, this is me. Like, do you like just be yourself and show up as you are, and the right people will come, the right collaborations, the people will start to resonate with that because they'll say, okay, I like her. I like what she's about. I like what she stands for.
Mhm.
I want to do something with her. I want to, support that. I can get behind that.
Yeah.
But if you're not, at the same time, people also see that when you're not being yourself. They also see that. We think
Yep.
they don't. Like we can deceive everybody and be like, well, let me put I call it business Barbie. That's what I told everyone. I used to be like business Barbie and I'd have like the perfect outfit on and my makeup
Yeah.
on and I would talk a certain speak. And I swear, everyone in the room, it's like they can tell, they can
They can
smell
tell.
it. And they'd be like, yeah, she's cool, but you know what I mean? I get that vibe. I get a lot of questions because I wasn't clear.
Mhm.
So I want to say like clarity came for me during
Mhm.
COVID and just, I mean, during the first part of the pandemic, it was like, it was grief. And I know that you and I have discussed this before about grief, but it was grief. It was like, for me, I lost my entire business
Yeah.
2020, March of 2020. And a lot of people did too.
Mhm.
And I talked to a lot of amazing women all over the country and all over the globe because we could. I mean, not that we couldn't before, we just didn't know we could. We didn't realize
Right.
how possible things were with Zoom and with all these different great apps and features, like to be able to connect on that level virtually until we were forced to, till everybody was like forced to slow down and be like stuck in their house and go, okay, I need people. Where are my people?
Yeah, and like on this journey to find community, and I'm glad that you are a huge community member now, and like pivoting in a way where you can still have your community. How did you end up finding your community after the pandemic?
I found it because that's again where I'm at in the stage of my life, and this is past all the stuff we discussed before. So it's like I had already had a business. I was running a business. I was doing event management for nonprofits and consulting work, and I want to give back because I'm really big on that, on community in general. That's just part of my vibe, and it's important to me. And enhancing collaborations. So I was doing that work. Obviously, events stopped, came to a screeching halt in 2020. So I didn't have any work, and so I had to reinvent again. And
Mhm.
then I had to say, oh, so I started becoming a student. I was like, I'm going to just learn. I'm going to listen. I'm going to kick
Mhm.
back. I'm going to listen and learn. And I'm going to be a student of the world like I was when I was 20. I went seriously. I'm almost 40 now, I'll be 40 in August. I went back to my 20s and I was like, where was that girl? That
Yeah.
that girl was like kicking ass and taking names and
Mhm.
like ready to take over the world. And she didn't care what people thought. And she did not in a bad way. I obviously care. People are like, I'm not trying to hurt anybody, but I mean, I didn't care what people thought about what I was expressing and sharing with the world. I was just doing it my thing. And so that's what it took. It took me to go through that process of like inner reflection and be like, okay, you've cried, you've screamed, you kicked the chair, you did all the things, but there's nothing you can do about any of that. It's gone. So now what are you going to do? Now who are you? What's inside? What do you want to do? If you have a blank slate, you're starting over from scratch. But you know how to do that, chick, because you did it 20 years ago. You did it 10 years ago. In my mind, I was like, we already know how to do that. I had to remind myself how to do that again. And I started listening, getting on calls with people, LinkedIn. I met some of my team on LinkedIn. I built my team around that. I have a whole talk I want to do on this, building your team on a budget,
Yeah.
because it's like I met so many incredible women who are going through the same thing. And they're like, oh, I've got this skill set. I'll help you with that. Oh my gosh, that sounds cool. What you want to do? Let's talk about that. And maybe we can help each other. And we just started having these real conversations
Mhm.
and wanting to connect and collaborate. Then it was game on from that point. It was like, okay, well, you can do photography or you can do this, or you
Mhm.
got you got social media skills. Let's have you do this piece. And we just started building from there.
I mean, I just think it's also your grit, as I said, and your creativity and just the humbleness that you have to be a student of the world. Okay, cool. Let's start over again and let me just learn. I think a lot of times people have a bit of pride when they do that, or they have some imposter syndrome. And, I definitely want to touch up on your experience of imposter syndrome. For me, imposter syndrome comes a lot from being in a world where I don't see myself in. And so, I am Asian American, but growing up, many people did not look like me where I was brought up. And, even stepping in to help my parents after I graduated and, like talking about and building a brand, I also felt a little bit of imposter syndrome because I'm like, what do I really even know about all of this? And what I realized with imposter syndrome is it's totally fake. It's just something that you make up in your head, a little bit of victimization of, oh, like it has a lot of fear around it. And I know a lot of people go through it. I've talked to a lot of other, especially, first generation immigrant kids here, and honestly, women as well. Like everybody has it, but nobody talks about it. Could you kind of highlight your experience of imposter syndrome and, how you got out of that every time?
Yeah, I still experience it, to be
Mm,
honest with you. I still do. And I'm just being super transparent because it's true. Like
mm,
I've done a lot of work around this,
mm,
and I'm happy to share that because I think it's important, so important, and so important for women, especially. I'm not saying men don't experience it too. I
mm,
appreciate your perspective on the cultural aspect of it because that's a whole nother layer that I haven't experienced. And it's
mhm,
very it is real. It's a real thing. And it's like something that we sometimes don't take into account, but it's part of our experience and part of our journey in through this when we're meeting in different spaces, who we're interacting with. But I can tell you that There's lots of different things. I do everything from dance before a meeting. I mean, I'm not kidding. Like, I'm
I
like,
love it.
what gives me the zhuzh? What gets me excited? Like, how do I want to feel? I'm trying to connect my head to heart
Mhm.
more and be in my body, like really feel like that's something that's been very helpful for me is like doing poses or like getting in, like doing a little like happy dance or doing something before I'm going into a very stressful situation or a meeting, maybe where I'm not totally sure how
Mhm.
it's going to go or who's there and what they're thinking and what's going on. I feel that imposter syndrome walking in because I'm like, why am I here? And sometimes what's nice about imposter syndrome, I'm going to give everyone like a little bit of relief,
Mhm.
is that go in curious, go in like open, and go in just being like, I don't know what's going to happen,
Mhm.
but like I'm meant to be here for some
Yeah.
reason. And I'm going to discover along the way, whether it be throughout the dialogue, if I'm presenting something, or if the person's asking questions, it allows me an opportunity then to answer my own way. And I'm going to discover in this process that I am absolutely meant to be here. Like I have a place here. I have a reason that I was invited. I had to get over that too. Like someone invited me, like you invited me on this podcast. And I'm like, I could look at the title or the topic and go, ooh, like, what does she want me to talk about and
Yeah.
why? I don't know if I have what it takes to say that. True. But you invited me for a reason because you
Mhm.
saw something in me and you saw part of the story that you wanted to tell further and share. And I'm honored. And so I'm like, okay, I'm going to show up for
Yeah.
her as well. And I'm going to share that super open and honestly and just be myself because I don't really know how to be. So I'm like, if we just be ourselves and allow that process to unfold, like be conscious in the moment, let everything just unfold and let that kind of emergence happen. I've had that experience over and over again now. It's helped me a lot.
Mhm.
Just being still and being like, okay, let me just kick back and watch what everyone's doing. If I'm in a meeting or if I'm at a presentation on a panel, I might be shaking. I've had moments where I'm shaking.
Mhm.
I've been shaking and I have to like hold my hand.
Yeah.
I'll just squeeze my hand and be like, you got this, girl. Like in my mind, I'm like,
Yes.
it's good. Like you're because and then just it's like be your when I start to find myself use my voice and say what's going on, it becomes more comfortable.
Yeah.
I actually relax. Like I actually relax. And sometimes it's okay to say, I don't know, or I don't understand, or I don't think I can answer that question, or do like it's okay to not know things. I just asked you before this how to use Calendly. I'm just admitting it out loud. I asked her, I was like, you know how you seem like you got this together. Can you?
And that's the thing, like, I'm happy to help you in any situation. And I've also presented where I've been shaking, you're just so in your head about it all, but really learning how to relax and be present. And like you said, just be yourself. Like, there's a reason why you're there, whether you're speaking at something or you're a guest. And you've just got to like convince yourself, like, I was meant to be here for something. Like, let me try to learn something. Let me be a student, or let me just network. I mean, there's so many opportunities, especially as a business person. And, just overcoming imposter syndrome, it happens all the time. Like you said, like you still go through it. Sometimes I still go through it. And like, I think once you become aware of it, that is like such a big step, because we often go through these spirals where you're going down this negative spiral for no apparent reason. And when you stop and catch yourself, you're like, wait a minute, why am I saying this to myself? Why am I bullying myself? And like, I need to either talk to an accountability partner who's like, hey, like, I'm going through this. They're like, why are you saying any of that about yourself? Like, and I think a big one that my friends and I talk about is, would you say this to a friend?
Yes, or a baby or like a
Yes.
child. Would you
Yeah.
speak to a 1-year-old like that?
Yeah, like, would you say this to a friend of yours? Like, would you say that to them? Probably not. No, the answer is no, you wouldn't say that to yourself. It's just these things that occur, and you just have to, I think, figure out what for you it keeps you present and self-aware, and learn how to catch yourself if you start going down that spiral.
I heard something really, really cool today. Can I share
Mhm.
it?
Yeah.
That it goes along with what you said, but I wanted to share it because it came up in a conversation and it said, our intention is to be unintentional. And then it was like, no, seriously, it's like you only know what you know, but there's so much more in you than you know.
Yep.
I'm like, what? I was like, let's noodle on that one for a second. Like I had to write it down because I'm like, that is the coolest thing I've ever heard. I got to like go back and process that. You only know what you know, but there's so much more in you than you know. And so it's like, it's there. You just have to call it up. And like, whatever that is, you want to dance, you want to tell yourself, call a friend, get a little bit of a, get yourself pumped up.
Yeah.
Um, and just be in the moment and be present. It's
Yeah.
actually pretty delightful. And we don't do that. We don't allow ourselves or give ourselves permission to just be like kick back and just be like, this is fun. Like,
Yeah.
let's get on this ride, this panel discussion, this event, this whatever we're doing. Like, this is going to be a good time. We're going to have a good time with it.
Yeah, and you bring up this concept that like we need to give ourselves the space to feel the things that we need to feel, especially before something that is nerve-wracking. But one thing that Women Making Waves does is it gives women the space on what they need. So could you tell us a little bit about, what you're up to now and what amazing work you're doing for your community, and how inspiring it is to know that there's a woman out there creating that space for other women.
Yes, it's again, it's an evolution. It's still evolving. What I can say about it, and for anyone out there who's running a business or starting a business or thinking about it or diversifying whatever they're doing or wants to build a community, it's about trust,
Yeah.
first and foremost, and trust within yourself first, and belief in yourself that you can bring this thing to fruition. You can take this vision or this idea or creation and make it happen. And then finding those people and resources and things to help you get there. And then it's also about trusting, gaining that trust from that community, like showing up for others so they show up for you, like do the exchange, do the reciprocation, be like, they're really there for people. I mean, that's the hardest part of my journey as a community leader. It's like trying to show I have to show up for these women just as much as they're showing up for me. And we create events. We're really, I would say I'm super proud of the fact that we were building last year. This is all very new. I mean, this kind of started in 2020. So it's 2021 has been like our full year of like practicing with this. I would say I call it practice because that's what it feels like. And then it is like we started retreats every month. We have an online membership now where you can do mindfulness, movement, and mingling because those things are super important. The connections and talking every month with women, having like a movement piece. You can have like a Zumba class, a dance class, belly dancing, like have fun and enjoy that. And then also doing the mindfulness, having that space. Like we've recognized that taking that time to create or just taking that time for pause, really there's power in that pause. And it's very, very important to just make it. So we're like, we're going to build a dance floor and everybody can dance to the beat of their own drum on that dance floor. Because there is a quote about that. It's like diversity is like inviting everyone to the party, but inclusion is like asking everyone to dance with you on the dance floor. And that's what we're trying to do is the inclusion piece of just bringing women together to go, okay, know yourself, connect to others. All these women are here to support you legitimately. And so we're just want to create that sacred safe space and psychological safe space for people to like share their stories, dialogue, connect, be authentic, and ask questions and question everything at the same time and change and grow, because there is no change in comfortability and staying where you are. Like it's never going to change. So you can keep doing what you're doing and that's totally fine, but you might not experience that beauty of like these new awesome connections or this new event thing going on, or this new creation you can make, new business that could blossom, new ideas. So yeah, that's what we're really excited about right now is our retreats, and we're refining. We're just refining right now. We're like, okay, we've got a cool formula, we've got a awesome community of women, and they love it. And like, how can we then like enhance it, make it better, make it more special, make them feel really loved, really seen, really heard? Like that's kind of where we're at right now. We're just questioning again, just constantly like stepping back. It's like a little flow, like a wave, pun intended. But we're like, we go up and down, we go back and forth. We're just like, we're going to pull back, push in, pull back. Yeah, it's been fun. It's really been fun. And it's challenging. I've learned a lot, like even this Calendly thing, like just having to learn tech and like how to do virtual events, or having to experiences online. Like what is people's engagement versus being in person? And oh my gosh, it's just been so crazy trying to figure all that out. But I can't not, when you wake up in the morning, this, I'm sure, right, Miley? If you wake up in the morning and you're like, okay, what are we going to do today? Like, you're like, what's going to happen? And I'm just excited about it. Even though I might have 10,000 meetings or whatever, I'm just like, okay, I'm excited for each and every one. I'm like, let's just get in zone. Let's figure it out. And they're not always ideal. The outcome isn't always great, or it might be shelved or tabled. And I'm like, let's just keep going. What else? And that's when I know it's right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And just also, you bring up a good point too of like just having fun while doing it all. It's not always going to be rainbows and butterflies as an entrepreneur. It might be scary. You might go through some really terrible meetings that you just feel like are a waste of your time. But a bit of advice is just like always count your wins, those baby steps. Like if you had a great meeting, like celebrate that with however that looks like to you and just keep going. I mean, even making a pivot to a whole, like a whole new thing and really like refining over and over again, for you as the leader of these women, what is going to be beneficial to them? What have you yourself gone through and the spaces that you've been in, and how can you help other women? I mean, I love what you're doing. I can't wait to actually attend one of these things.
Well, it's coming soon to you
Yes,
because we're going to be doing them in Orange County and LA.
amazing.
So yes, you will have an opportunity very, very soon to
Yes, I
come join
can't wait.
an event.
I can't wait for that. And, my favorite part of my podcast is also sharing some golden nuggets about, if you want to pivot, if you want to start a new business, if you're lost in your identity. So, what are some golden nuggets that you can share with my audience? And also, I want to hear about, the next event so people can go and find you, and then definitely drop your website for people so they can look you up and, find that space with you.
Well, you can find everything at women-making-waves.com. That's our website.
Okay.
And that has our pause and play events and retreats. There's workshops every month online. They're hybrid, some of them, and some are virtual. And then there's membership, and there's all the different things you can read about our story and just get kind of a good overview of our community and what we're about, which again is evolving. So I'm going to tell everyone that, like, you might see new things pop up and go like, oh my gosh, we're creating a next gen program right now called the Next Wave. We're in the process of that. And that is like on my heart big time. And so I'm like, what does that look like? And that could drop in 2023. Mm-hmm. So there's all these exciting things you can find on the website. But our next event is a retreat here in Pismo Beach, which is Central Coast, California, called Sex on the Beach. And it's really about self-love is sexy. It's February, and it's all about romance and going to dinner and all that stuff. And we're like, wait, what about us? What about us like loving our bodies and learning about our life force energy? And we're doing Kundalini meditations and chakra alignment. We're doing some movement with my friend Shauna. It's Ignite Booty School. She does like twerking and, some shimmying and like really getting like to embrace the jiggle, like embrace the shake, and feel that way in your body, feel sexy, feel like you're strong, and powerful. So we have and we have a great workshop, put together. So we do that. It's a lot of learning. It's connecting. We have time to mingle and hang out, but we have nutritious, delicious food and all these things. So that's happening on the 27th, and that's on the website. And the nuggets, you wanted the nuggets. And I can't remember some of them. I have to say, trust yourself. That was my number one. And I think I did bring that up in our conversation, but it's like, trust yourself. And I think I also mentioned finding people, like being able to ask for help or delegating.
Building out a team.
Building out your team. And I call it like your front row or your A team or whatever you want to call it, a personal board of directors. It's like having those people that you can go to for different things, and then building out your team to support you in the business. Also, there's all kinds of little things. We don't have to be all things. We do not. We can just recognize who we are. That goes back to awareness and being like, I do this well. I want to do this part. Who else can help me with these other pieces that are not so fun or that are challenging for me or take 10,000 hours for me to do? And so that's important. And delegating, learning how to delegate. But trusting yourself, building on a team. Did I say, I think I had a third one.
The third one that I have down is staying consistent.
Yes, that's it. That's it. I was going to say stay the course. So there you go. Stay the course, but staying consistent. I had someone tell me that about their family business. That's a longtime family business. And they said, we've been through bankruptcies, ups and downs. We've been through everything. And they're like, but we stayed consistent, stayed the course. And we're still thriving today when other things that people have copied us, they've taken our business, they've done all the things, and they've we've still been here. We're here because of that. So I'm like, staying consistent is key. Sometimes when you think you're right about at the time you want to give up, and you're just like, I can't do this anymore. I can't get out of bed. This is bad. Trust me, there's like some little light on the other side. Usually that's the point where you're going to grow. That's when you're leveling up. That's when it's like something's going to pop and open up right then, because you're feeling all that angst and uncertainty and those challenges inside, and you're like, you just have to keep going.
And that is the perfect note to end on. Thank you for sharing yourself so vulnerably on my podcast. I am honored to hear your story. I'm honored to know you. And I'm so excited for all the magic you're going to be making in this world. And for those of you who are listening, thank you for being here as well. And I hope that you tune in for the next episode. And thank you so much for listening to a Donut Princess podcast, short and sweet. And we will talk to you soon. Holla at your girl.